The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Today on Communicating with Prospects, we'll be discussing 4 communication skills that empower you to start business conversations that turn prospects into customers. Hello everyone, my name is Andy Winig. Welcome to the webinar. I'm glad to also welcome my co-host Lora Lyons. Lora, welcome.
Hello, and glad to be here.
Thanks, Laura. So just a couple of administrative things as we get started. First of all, we have a bunch of people on the call, so everyone is in mute mode. So actually what I'd like to ask everyone to do now, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. So if you can find a way on your control panel to raise your hand. I would like to ask you to, if you can hear our voices and if you can see the screen, please go ahead and raise your hand now so we know that the technology is working. Excellent. Thank you very much. And also, since everyone's on mute, the best way to communicate with us is to type a question into your chat question box there. And if you wouldn't mind right now, if you could just type into the question box how you heard about the webinar. So what I'm asking you to do right now is to find that chat box and just type in for us how you heard about this webinar and send it over to us so we have a sense of where everyone's coming from.
Good way to warm up the fingers.
Exactly. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So if you're still working on typing in a response, just go ahead and keep doing that. We're going to get started here. And so what we're talking about today is we're really talking about business conversations. And I work more on the verbal side, kind of what you say. And Laura actually has a lot of expertise on the nonverbal side, the way that you say it. So I'd like to start off. Laura, can you give an example of a conversation that didn't quite go as you'd planned? A business conversation didn't quite go as you'd planned.
Yes, certainly. Several years ago when I was opening my business, starting my business as a professional coach, I remember one time having an introductory, like an initial consultation with a prospect. And the conversation went really great up until near the end when the prospect asked me, "How much?" And I thought I was good at pretending that all was well on my end, and I stated the fee, and then she said, "You know, can I offer you some feedback as a fellow businesswoman?" I said, "Sure." And she said, "Well, it sounds like you're apologizing for your fee." And that was amazing. Yes, because I thought that I was hiding it well. That's the piece I struggled with, was setting a fee that I was comfortable with that also reflected the value that I offered people. So when I started my business, that was where it was at, and I was surprised to learn how it came across.
Interesting. Well, so you've given a really good example of 2 things there. The first is how you said the right thing, right? The words that you were saying were correct, but it was kind of there was something in the way you were saying it that didn't resonate well.
Exactly.
And the second thing was you ended up in a conversation about how you were coming across as a business owner instead of a conversation about how excited she was to join your program, right? So
not what I intended.
Not what you intended, right? Right, and actually a lot of people don't know this. When I started ImprovAndy, I had a similar kind of thing that there is basis in the work that I do with improvisation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when I started off, the same as you, Laura, I was talking to people a lot about improv, and the type of responses that I would be getting were, "Oh, you know, I love Drew Carey," or "Have you seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?" And while those are great shows, and I really respect Drew Carey and think he's a wonderful comedian, the work that I do is really business coaching. And so once again, I was kind of getting into the wrong kind of business conversation there. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today, kind of starting the right kind of business conversation.
Now, Andy, do you have an example of what you mean by a business conversation?
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Laura, for asking that. So the example I like to use of starting a business conversation is there's this client of mine who, before she started working with me, if you had asked her what she did, she would have said she was a mortgage broker. Now, at the time, the housing market was in trouble, and so when she would say she was a mortgage broker, everyone would come back and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Things must be terrible for you. You know, are you okay? Are you getting by?" And the interesting thing was that she was doing fine. There were plenty of mortgages available, and she had plenty of customers. Her issue was that her elevator pitch was putting her on the defensive so fast. that she had no way of convincing people that there were actually mortgages available. And so what did we do? Well, what we did was we turned it around for her. So that instead of saying that she's a mortgage broker, now if you ask her what she does, she says, she says, the best thing that happened to me last week was that I helped this young couple purchase their very first home. And as you can imagine, this creates a whole different kind of response from people. People say, oh, there are mortgages available, or I'm looking to do a refinance with my wife. Is that something you could help us with? And so she's turned the conversation around now. Instead of being on the defensive, she's turned it around so that she's actually having a conversation about her business. And so to motivate this further, Laura, can you give an example of kind of how you get a prospect's attention? Kind of what's been your approach to getting a prospect's attention?
Well, I can give you an example of something that didn't work.
Oh, great, sure, yeah.
Okay, because I've struggled with elevator pitches has been a struggle of mine for many years, especially as a new business person. And I tried so many approaches. I've tried different elevator pitches, including stating my process, which didn't work. I learned that. And I've also done experiential approaches, which, here and there worked, kind of, not really. But the most interesting one was an actual accident in the way I got people's attention. What happened was I was at a networking event, and when it was my turn to stand up and introduce myself to the room full of people, as I stood up, my chair fell back.
Really?
And so there was a man sitting behind me, and he was so nice and generous that he helped me with my chair. And I continued on and introduced myself and stated my elevator pitch, and afterwards, that same man came up to me, and he said, I'm the one that helped you with the chair. And he said, I've been looking for a coach for a long time, like a business coach. I want to hire you. I said, wait a minute, why me? And he said, well, I liked how you maintained your composure when you dropped your chair. There was something there that I noticed about you, and I'm really drawn to it.
Well, but hang on a second. You gave us an example of an elevator pitch that didn't work.
Right.
Right, but you actually got a client out of it.
That's true. That's true.
So actually, that's a great example of actually getting someone's attention, and I can understand why you might not want to drop a chair every time you went through.
Right.
But there's something in there. It's interesting. It's so interesting to me how a lot of people do that. They have an elevator pitch that works. They're like, I don't know, but I don't want to get that kind of attention. Right. So it's interesting. It's interesting as we talk about this that you actually do have something that worked. And the thing that he liked about you was that you had composure, right? Which that was the kind of thing he was looking at. That's very interesting. I hope we'll come back to this example later on. That's but handling with composure. That's a great example of the kind of thing you want your elevator pitch to do. Right? So how can I have an elevator pitch that shows people that I can be very composed under pressure? Right? If that's the kind of thing that you're offering, that's the kind of thing that draws clients to you. Maybe you do want to be dropping chairs, and again, it might or might not be the right thing, but that's the kind of work you can do when you put together an elevator pitch. Kind of how do you get someone's attention?
That's very interesting. Well, so what's your elevator pitch, Mr. Andy?
Well, what I like to do with my elevator pitch is get other people to give me their elevator pitch, because it turns out that, everyone has an elevator pitch that they use, and most people are a little bit uncomfortable with it because they feel like they haven't practiced it. They're not sure what the goals of it are. So what I usually try to do when I meet people is kind of, ask them to give their elevator pitch and then kind of help them through it.
Wait a minute. So you, at a networking event, for example, you have them stand up and just say, go up to them and say, ask them what their elevator pitch is? Like put them on the spot like that?
Oh, no, thank you, Laura. That's a great question. And what you're pointing out actually are two different types of elevator pitches. And my formal elevator pitch is, if I'm standing up in front of people, I'll say something to the effect of, how do you if I'm standing up in front of people, I say, if you've ever struggled to explain what makes you different, or if you ever feel that your message isn't getting across, you want to hear about our proprietary 2-hour process that distills your years of experience into a 4-sentence elevator pitch that starts business conversations and turns prospects into customers.
Wow. You mean, Andy, I just want to ask you, you mean that there are different types of pitches? You made reference to that.
There are tons of different types of elevator pitches. There's 30-second, 60-second, topic-based, theme-based, formal, conversational. There are a bunch of different elevator pitches that people can use.
So then how do you decide which one to use?
Well, that's a really good question. And what I really teach people, it all starts with your formal elevator pitch with a 4-sentence elevator pitch that you give. And I find that the exercise of going through creating your formal pitch, having kind of 4 sentences that you really love and get you into the right kinds of conversations, can seed the other kinds of conversations that you'd want to have. And so I like people to have the kind of 30-second pitch they stand up with in front of an audience, and then a lot of the work that comes after that is turning that into a more conversational thing. So yes, I'm one-on-one with someone. How do you get into that kind of conversation instead of standing up? But it's interesting to me that you kind of have to go through the work of creating the formal 30-second elevator pitch to become better at the conversational side of it. That the work that goes into the formal pitch really drives being more on the conversational side.
Oh, well, unless you have anything more to say about that, I have a question I've always wanted to ask you.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you really prepare your elevator pitch by what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
But I know your background is improvisation. And I think of improvisation as spontaneous and off the cuff. But your approach sounds far from that, really prepared.
Laura, that's a great question. It was something that really confused me about improvisation when I started learning it, because the first thing you learn when you get into improvisation is that you actually rehearse for your improvisational show. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean you're rehearsing for improv show, right? Isn't this supposed to be thinking on your feet kind of stuff?
Right.
And the answer that I got, and that I really like to use, because I'm a big baseball fan, I like to use the baseball example, and that with baseball is really improvisation, right? When you get into the game, you don't know where the pitcher's going to throw the pitch. You don't know where the batter's going to hit the ball. You don't know when the runner's going to steal, right? There's all sorts of things that are happening that you can't really predict. But what the baseball players have done is practice the basic skills, right? There's running and throwing and catching and hitting. So they get together and they practice these skills. So when they take those skills out into the game kind of environment, then they're ready to go. And improvisation is the same kind of thing. The skills are listening to each other and coming up with ideas. And we did a lot of work practicing storytelling, right? Because improv is really about storytelling. And the thing about improv is that you can't talk to each other on a side about what's going, when the scene is over. You can only talk through as characters to each other. So you have to kind of learn that group environment kind of thing. The same way baseball players, they know where they need to be if a certain kind of hit is made in a certain kind of situation. And so you're working on these basic skills. And what we're talking about here with the elevator pitch is really the same thing. What we're talking about, and a lot of what we're going over today, are the basic kind of skills of elevator pitch. And one of the skills is knowing that there are a bunch of different elevator pitches. And another one of the skills is having something set that you can pull out at any time. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can improvise a little bit on it, based on the conversation that you're getting into or based on the situation. There are different kinds of pitches you can pull out, and you've got a bunch of them prepared. And based on the situation, you can kind of pull on your experience and make that happen. And in answer to your earlier question, yes, I prepare very carefully for every networking event that I go to. And people say to me all the time, it really seems like you're off the cuff. But it comes from preparation, right? When the work that I do, it actually comes from preparation. And that's a lot of what we help people with, is preparing them, practicing for that situation they're going to be in, where they're looking to sign up customers.
Andy, we were saying a lot here about elevator pitch, and I've had some people ask me, that what is an elevator pitch and where does it get its name?
That's really great.
Yeah, we have a great picture right here on the.
We do, yes.
Yes.
So the elevator pitch came from this idea that you're riding an elevator with a top prospect, right? You find yourself in a building in an elevator, and the VP of whatever comes in, and it's just kind of the person that you want to talk to. And so you have about 30 seconds during the elevator ride to make your pitch, and you have about 30 seconds to get their attention and to start the business conversation. And it's interesting to me, Laura, that a lot of people interpret the elevator pitch as, I have to tell them all about what I'm doing, right, to get them interested. And we're really talking here today on this call, and in the work that you and I do with people, we're talking about the elevator pitch as a way of starting a conversation, right? We're going to be talking today about a couple of ways of getting people's attention. And that's really what I look for with the elevator pitch. There are actually 3 elements to an elevator pitch. There's a power question, a compelling example of how easy it is to do business with you, and a call to action. And today we'll be discussing a lot of that middle piece, kind of how easy it is, the compelling example of how easy it is to do business with you. But again, from a skills point of view, those are the 3 pieces of an elevator pitch. And the 3 pieces work together to create the right kind of conversation so that the VP will say something to you like, oh, I'd like to hear more about that. Why don't we set up a time to get together?
Right.
And that's when you know that your elevator pitch has been successful.
What are those 3 pieces again? Do you mind just saying them again?
I do not mind at all. So the three
Okay.
pieces of an elevator pitch
Yes.
are a power question, a compelling example of how easy it is to do business with you,
Uh-huh.
and a call to action.
Do you have an
And
example?
if people are interested in more information about that, you can go to elevatorpitchworkshops.com. There's some more resources out there about kind of the three pieces of an elevator pitch and how you can put all that together. So thank you, Laura. Those are great questions.
Perfect.
Well, so we're having. Well, I can talk about this. I can talk about this forever, but let's actually make sure that we're giving people the tips we promised you as we
That's
came
a great
together
idea.
there.
Well, what's the first tip?
Well, so the first tip is we're going to focus on getting someone's attention. And the story I like to tell for this is a lot of you who know me know that I, in addition to owning ImprovAndy, I own this window cleaning, which is a ground level window cleaning business. And I started that business about 8 years ago and did full cold call selling to get that business up and running. And I have a great story that was really the turning point for me in understanding this aspect of the elevator pitch. I was walking down the street, one of the streets in Cambridge in Inman Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I came to a store that said, that had a sign in the window that said, "We do not accept solicitors. If you are selling any sort of thing for any sort of reason, please do not come into our store." And at this time, I had been fairly well trained in sales, and I had learned to ignore those kinds of signs. So I walked up the door to walk into the store. And on the door is a slightly more strongly worded sign that says, "This means you. If you are here to sell us anything, we really do not want to talk to you, and we will throw you out. So go away." And again, a trained salesman, so I pushed the door open and walked right in. And I get up to the front counter, and I encounter a third sign that says, "Stop. If you are here to sell us something, we really do not want to talk to you."
Wow.
And you know me, Laura. I'm pretty hard to persuade, but this kind of had me tucking my tail between my legs. I was ready to slink back out the door. My problem was the guy behind the counter had already caught my eye. He looked up and he said, he says, "What's going on?" I said, I just wondered if you're interested in a free estimate for cleaning the windows. And this guy looked me squarely in the eye, said, "Yeah." He said, "That'd be great. Why don't you write that up for us?" And it was baffling to me, right? I mean, it was baffling to me. And what happened? Well, what happened, of course, was that I was offering something he was interested in on that day. And how could I have known he was interested in it? There was no way. He just had to. You just had to go ask him. And in fact, I was giving a form of an elevator pitch there, right? That was a form of an elevator pitch designed to get his attention, right? Do you want a free estimate for window cleaning? That's an example of a good elevator.
So that's a
I
power.
would have to give it to. I'm sorry.
Is that a power question?
Yeah, it has elements of a power question. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it has elements of a power question in it.
Okay.
So I want to not get lost. So I want not to lose the first tip in all this. And the first tip is based on this idea of how do you find out who is interested today. And Laura, what I'd like to do is offer a tip that is the most overlooked business opportunity in the world. In fact, I would bet that each person on the call today, each of you is walking by this opportunity at least 5 times a day. At least 5 times a day, you have an opportunity to use this next tip that I'm going to give. And so the way, and I'm not asking you to pick up the phone anymore or knock on any more doors, right? As you're going through your day, each day, you have 5 more opportunities to use this next tip. So what does the tip say? Well, here we go. What happens is people come up to you during your day, people you know, people you don't know, and they look you in the eye and they say, "Hey, what's new?" And Laura, what do most people say when they're asked what's new?
Nothing. Not much.
That's right. Just trying to get by. Same old, same old. This is the biggest missed opportunity in sales. It's absolutely the biggest missed opportunity in sales. And so the first tip I'm giving is to actually tell people what's new. When somebody asks you what's new, you want to give them a professional, personal, or hobby story. So once again, I'll give those 3 things you can use. There's a professional, a personal, or a hobby story. And as we talk about the elevator pitch, remember I talked about the 3 elements of the elevator pitch. This is what we use to motivate that middle portion, the compelling example of how easy it is to do business with you. When you're responding to what's new correctly, you're actually creating those kinds of things that you can use in your elevator pitch. And that's why I really love to give this example, because it's a very easy thing to do. When I give talks, it's easy for people to come up with good examples of these things. The one question I get is, why would I ever use a personal story, right? And there are certain personal stories that are inappropriate in a business setting. But in general, if you've just been to Aruba, maybe you'll connect with someone else who really likes going to Aruba. Maybe you're going to Playa del Carmen, right, and somebody's just been there and can tell you how to avoid all the different tourist traps, right? And again, I'll remind you that in the elevator pitch, the goal is to start the conversation, right? The goal is to get the conversation moving. And so that's really what this tip is about, is to tell a specific detailed story about something that's going on that's good. When people say to me, what's new, I can say, well, I'm doing a great webinar today on ways to inspire prospects to buy, communicating with prospects. Or I can say, I just had a meeting this morning with a team that's getting ready to do the high school leadership program that I run, right? And it gets people interested in stuff that I'm interested in already as well. And so it's really a great way of starting those conversations. So once again, the first tip is that someone asks you what's new, you actually respond with something out of your professional, personal, or hobby life. And
prepare, like you.
Yeah, yes, I recommend for a while when I woke up in the morning, I would prepare 3 different things that I would use that day. And they don't have to change every day, obviously. But yes, I recommend preparing, thinking about what am I going to say when someone asks me what's new. And you know what, Laura, the really tough thing about this, it took me about 2 months to change my habit here, right? It's such a societally ingrained habit. What's new, nothing. What's new, nothing. What's new, nothing. I'm supposed to say something. So you kind of have to go through that process. I encourage people to just start going through that process, that you'll have opportunities to do this and just start, prepare what you want to say and then start saying.
That's a great new habit.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to say that's a great new habit to form. That's great.
Thank you. No, I find it to be really useful. And so, Laura, your expertise is more on the nonverbal side. Do you want to give us a nonverbal tip on kind of how you get someone's attention?
Sure. Thank you. Well, I'd like to walk us through in a moment a grounding exercise. And why am I doing that? We're always making impressions, no matter what. And it shows through. Remember when I shared that story about the apologizing? It sounded like I was apologizing for my fee.
Sure, yep.
I thought I was hiding my discomfort and struggle with the fee. I thought I was hiding it really well. And this conversation with the prospect was over the phone. So I imagine what I might have, my body language probably was saying as well if this woman had seen me in person when I said my fee. Yep. But she could hear it in my voice. So this is why I'm going to walk us through a grounding exercise to bring us into our bodies and build some awareness there, because I was unaware. Again, I thought I was fooling her, but we don't fool anybody.
Gotcha.
We're pretty smart people, all of us. So the great thing about this grounding exercise that I'm offering is it just takes seconds to do. And one key thing I want to put out there to remind you all is to think about is that energy follows attention. So right now in this moment, I invite you to, Andy, to just bring awareness, bring your attention to your feet. Just think about your feet. Notice your feet. Notice the sensation of your feet touching the ground. Feeling the weight of them touching the ground, like whether you're sitting or standing. And then feeling gravity pulling underneath them. And then bring your attention to your big toes. Like remember that you have big toes and you have some little toes. And then bring your attention to your heels. And how about now to the top of your feet? And feeling your feet, whether they're barefoot, feeling the air around them, or you have shoes on, feeling them contained in a shoe. I invite you to raise your hand if your feet feel, say, more alive with energy right now, like you may notice a temperature, or maybe they're sore.
Well, it's funny, Laura, because I'm actually creating a I'm feeling my feet. I'm feeling the compression of my feet on the ground, which I've never really felt before. Like I'm very aware that my feet are being pressed into the ground. And then I just want to ask you, we can open it up in a second for people to kind of type in the experience they're having with us into the question box. Can I ask you, how is this going to help me with my elevator pitch? Right? I mean, I understand that I'm kind of I'm becoming aware of my feet and kind of the compression of the ground, but how is that going to help me in the business world?
That's a really great question. Remember my story about when I dropped the chair at that networking event?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's a great moment to draw from, because in that moment, I was caught up. I quickly, the chair dropped, and my thoughts went, oh my God, the chair fell, and everyone's looking at me, and I don't know what they're thinking about me, like, am I klutz? And I remembered, thank goodness, because it's a new habit, like your what's new habit.
Yep.
With your answers, I practice this every day, where I brought my attention to my feet immediately when I noticed that I was taken off into another world and getting worried about what other people thought of me and all this stuff. So I brought my attention to my feet, and that helped me remember to calm myself down and do what I needed to do in the moment, which was to introduce myself and state my elevator pitch.
Interesting.
So it helped me regain my composure by getting out of my head where my thoughts were streaming in really fast and taking me out of the moment.
And so you were kind of aware that the incentive would have been to come out of the moment and to be embarrassed or kind of get pulled away from what you're actually trying
exactly.
to do.
I could have been like, sorry, being apologetic, making myself small, and it would have made an impression that I didn't intend, right?
Sure.
So when we bring our attention to anything, energy follows it, like I said.
Yep.
And if I brought more attention to my head, then I would react a certain way. But by bringing my attention to my feet, it energetically, physically, and physiologically brought attention to my feet, so I felt solid and firmly grounded.
Great. Well,
and in the present.
That's fascinating. So what I'd like to do now, I'm actually going to put a poll up for everyone. If you could respond to this poll. That looks at this a little bit. So when you're at a networking event, kind of being aware of how relaxed you are about it. So if you could just take a second and fill out our poll. Laura and I go quiet for a minute while you kind of fill out the poll. And if you have any experiences of this exercise Laura just went through, feel free to type that into the chat question while you're doing this as well. So. Great, thank you, everyone. I'm gonna actually share the results of our poll here because it shows that people are not. Some people are totally relaxed, but there's a bunch of people who go into these things a little bit tense. And Laura, can we read anything out of the way this poll went? Like what can we kind of share with people about to tie together what you're talking about now and how people are feeling at their networking event?
That's great. Well, I'm surprised. It's great that people are feeling totally relaxed, for example, right? No sweaty palms. Well, how I would tie this into the grounding exercise is that when we remember to check in, like it's an opportunity for us to be aware of our body. And people may be saying they're feeling totally relaxed. I'm just going to challenge that a little bit.
Yep.
Because sometimes we think we're a certain way. We think we're a certain way, but if we really check in with our body, we may notice a whole other bunch of information about ourselves that we weren't aware of because we were thinking about things. There may be a little butterflies. We may have a nervous tick. We don't, and it's important for us to bring attention to our body, and the grounding exercise is one way to do it so that we're not just walking around thinking.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I've had that experience where I thought, because I used to do a lot of theater, and occasionally I get called back, where the top kind of people come back to compete for the role.
Yeah.
And I had always thought that I was pretty relaxed during the callback phase, but then one time a friend of mine got called back, and I didn't, and I went with her to kind of keep her company during the callback. Mm-hmm. And I realized, sitting there in the theater with her being called back, that I was actually quite nervous when I was at a callback for myself because the tension, there was no tension in me at her callback. Like it was a very interesting. So I kind of hear what you're saying here that sometimes it's good. The people who know they're a little bit tense and it's hard to convince yourselves to walk through. It sounds like the grounding exercise is a good way kind of not to focus on the nervousness, right? You can focus back on your connection to yourself and why you're there, and kind of that I'm here to introduce people and grow my business, right? Kind of ground yourself back in that. And it's good to kind of check in with yourself and just see where you are about that to help you be more grounded. Am I right about that?
Yes, you are right about that. That's perfect. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in.
Yep, great. I want to go back for a minute to because you had presented this as an example of something that didn't, an example of an elevator pitch that didn't work. But you said that you actually
the
signed
dropping my chair one.
the dropping your chair. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said you actually signed up a customer. So this guy became a full-on customer for you.
That's true. He did sign up on the spot.
And then what did you help him with? What did you help him with?
Well, I helped him. He's a salesperson, and I don't work with him anymore. He graduated. But he came up to me and said, I want to be top sales dog at my company.
Yep.
And so we were entering the second or third quarter of the year, and he really wanted to be top sales guy by end of year. And by end of year, I helped him break a new sales record at his company, and he got recognition for it. So we actually pulled it off.
And you did that, did you teach him sales, or what did you teach him?
No, I don't have a sales background per se, so I didn't teach him any sales training. I essentially walked him through one of the practices was what I just did a moment ago, the grounding exercise. But I helped him learn ways to get grounded and fully present in the moment so that he wasn't taken off course. He had issues with his manager. He would sometimes derail him. So he was able to be grounded and present inside of that, and at the same time, like, he was able to put his priority and focus on what he really wanted to do, which was building stronger relationships with his clients, which increased his success in sales. Wow. And it's kind of similar to what happened to me when I dropped the chair. I got present to the moment, and I was able to introduce myself effectively.
In a way that caused you to sign up a customer out of what looked like a mistake.
Exactly.
That's really good. I'm so fascinated that you were able to teach him, that he became top sales guy, and you weren't actually teaching him any sales. In fact, Laura, I think that's part of your elevator pitch.
What do you mean? Really? I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is starting a business conversation, and the fact that you're teaching. Right, I mean, if you talk about teaching grounding and centering, which we're going to talk about in a minute,
right.
You know, I don't need to be grounded or centered, right? I don't have any kind of way of understanding how that works for me. And this is a situation we run into with a lot of elevator pitch people we work with, right? You know,
yeah, I used to do that all the time.
People have their secret sauce, and you know, I teach you how to be grounded.
Right.
But you know, but you worked with a client, and you didn't teach him any sales techniques, and you still helped him become a top sales guy. You know, if you say that to people are going to say, "How did you do that?" And at that point, your elevator pitch has worked, right? That's the only thing, as we talked about, like the only thing you're getting out of the elevator pitch is someone to say, I need to learn more about that. Let's sit down and talk more, right? Or they say, how do you do that? And you say, you know, I'm happy to sit down with you and talk you through the whole process, right? And so that's really when we talk about this kind of stuff, like that's really, when we talk about the what's new, right? That you have this great example of a sales guy that you helped make more sales, right? And that's very compelling story. That's a very compelling example of how easy it is to do business with you. So that's kind of the second. You right there have a real nugget of the second piece of your elevator pitch.
Woohoo! That's great.
Yeah,
Thanks for throwing that out.
Very nice work.
That's great. Well, I never really thought about it and never knew that was really the goal of the pitch.
No, a lot of people don't, right? There's a lot of myths floating around about the elevator pitch, and that is a strong one of them. You know, people aren't aware. You know, we talked earlier about skills, and people aren't aware that the goal of the elevator pitch is just to get the other person to say, how'd you do that? I need to hear more about that. And then you can say, I'd be happy to tell you more. When's a good time for us to sit down, right? And that's really where you move from the elevator pitch into the sales pitch, right? A lot of people think that they have to cram all their expertise into the elevator pitch. The expertise goes into the sales pitch, right? The elevator pitch is really just about starting the conversation. And once someone said, you had kind of the extreme example, like I'm signing up for you with you right here. But the goal of the conversation is for someone to say, great, I hear what you're saying, and I want that, and let's talk more about how I can get that, right? How can I become top sales guy without learning any new sales techniques, right? How is that possible? So that's a very compelling. I think that's a very compelling story. So what I'd like to do now, we've talked about kind of getting people's attention, an exercise in what's new, an exercise in grounding. That's really a very powerful sales technique. And what I'd like to do, Laura and I are going to go quiet for about 30 seconds to 60 seconds here, and I'd like everyone to just think about how they're doing this work, how this can help them in the work that they're doing. If you feel inspired to type into the chat box kind of what you're thinking about, what you've learned, feel free to share that with us. We'd love to hear what's going on. So we're just going to be quiet for about 30 seconds to let you think about kind of how you get people's attention, how you can be grounded and kind of focused on your business. That's great. You're doing great work, everyone. We'll share some of the responses that are coming in a little bit later on. So I wanted to tie things a little bit back to improv here because what we're talking about, right? What we just went through, Laura, was kind of an example of preparing, right? What you're doing is kind of talking about specific customers that you've had and details about those customers, and those are the sorts of things that drive these compelling examples. And so as you do that work now, when you're out talking to people, if you're in front of salespeople or something, you kind of have that story already set, and it's not the kind of story, or it's not the kind of story that you came up with working on your elevator pitch yourself, right? It's the kind of thing that coaching can really help with. And Laura and I will talk a little more. We have a special thing we're doing together, which is a really exciting program, which we'll talk about more a little bit later on. But that's a really great example of how preparation can get you ready for that moment when someone asks you the question, right? That's the kind of work that goes into this elevator pitch work that we do. How am I being represented? What am I saying? How am I saying it? That's the sort of work that goes into it. So it's a great example of that. All right, so let's move into our next segment. I'd like to start that off actually with another poll. So if you can look on the screen now, how long do you currently spend practicing before a networking event? So go ahead and fill out our next poll for us. Excellent. So people on the call are actually practicing. We're split between practicing in the car and practicing in front of the mirror, and that is excellent. I'm glad that people are practicing that. What I want to do, Laura, is just kind of motivate this with another story that I have, and we'll go back to baseball for a minute. As I said, I'm a great big baseball fan, and now I actually play softball because I've lost my step, and I can still be a star in softball where baseball moves a little fast for me. But a couple of years ago, I was unhappy with the way I was hitting. Right, I would be at bat in the softball game, and sometimes I'd hit the ball well, and sometimes I wouldn't hit the ball well, and I just couldn't tell. I wasn't getting as much power as I felt like I should. I just didn't seem to be hitting correctly. And so I heard about this batting cage up in Woburn, and I went up to the batting cage I took a lesson. I paid the guy $30 and he spent 45 minutes with me. And he actually taught me 3 different skills that all have to work together to hit the ball correctly. You have to fling the bat through the zone. You're kind of flipping the bat through the zone to create bat speed. Your hips have to be involved. Your hips have to be involved, and there's a particular way that you switch your weight. So these were kind of the 3 things we talked about as you get into the batter's box and hit the ball. And I will say that learning those things, it took me about 18 months to get all that together. For the next 18 months, I really hit very poorly because I was getting used to different sorts of pitches that I would like, and I was trying to get all the work together. But after 18 months, I now hit a home run pretty much every game that I play. And I expect to hit a home run every time at bat, but of course, part of playing baseball is that you don't actually get that. But the cool thing is that when I'm at bat and I hit the ball not as a home run, I know what went wrong. I can kind of know in my head what the skill was that didn't happen. And so I can look at it and say, okay, well, my hips weren't really in at that time, or I wasn't coordinated enough, or I wasn't creating enough bat speed. Whatever it was, I had practiced enough. I actually went to the batting cages. I took about 500 pitches over the course of that 18 months. And I realized that over the course of the season in softball, I'd probably see 20 to 25 pitches. So I did dozens of seasons worth of hitting just in the batting cages. And that it's a really great way. It's a really great way of thinking about things. That okay, so we have these skills, and how do you kind of put those skills in play to make things work? And again, if we want to tie this back to the elevator pitch, what we're working on today are a couple of different skills you can practice. Right, you can practice each morning coming up with ways of answering what's new. Right, you can practice each morning grounding, or you can practice as you go into a networking event and you realize you're a little bit nervous or a little bit tense. You can practice this grounding exercise, right, to give you more confidence and to kind of put you in the right kind of mood to move forward. And what I want to do now is kind of take that a step further and offer 2 specific ideas you can use to practice better. The first is to practice out loud into a digital voice recorder, right? You can buy these things for about $15 at the Radio Shack, right? A great little digital voice recorder. And the cool thing is if you're already practicing on your way to the networking event, just throw on the tape recorder and listen to it back, right? Listen back to it. The cool thing, Laura, about this is that if you put anyone in front of a speaker, right, the person can look at the speaker and kind of critique the speaker, right? Any of you in the audience, if we put you in an audience and there was a speaker, you critique the speaker. You'd know the things they did well and the things they did poorly. The reason you can't do that for yourself is that you're in the moment, and so you can't really be observing yourself at the same time you're being the speaker. And so with the digital voice recorder, or if you have a video recorder, that works well as well. When you practice this in front of the recorder, you can then listen back to it. And then you don't need as much coaching, right? A lot of people can coach themselves. A lot of the video coaching that Laura and I do, people see the video and they know what they need to fix. There's not so much to do. And it takes some courage to watch yourself, but it's really a great, it is. People are nervous about that. But
very humbling.
Well, then it's never as bad. It's never as bad as people think, right? It's never as bad as people think.
It could be.
Yeah, but it's usually not. Like you're coming across to other people, right? I mean, you're not. It's not like people are shunning you, right? You have conversations with people. You're out there in the world. You are using your elevator pitch, so things aren't nearly as bad as you think they are.
No.
And as a professional speaker, I actually record every single speech that I give, and every single speech I do, I watch the tape, and I'm like, oh, that's something I need to fix, right? So what we're talking about isn't a one-time thing. This is just part of. It's part of being a professional, right? It's part of being a softball player, right? I'm always practicing those three skills, and I put those three skills together. And from the elevator pitch side, I'm always practicing these skills. I'm always saying it out loud. I sometimes say it out loud in the shower. I'm always saying it out loud because it's very different. It's very different how you hear it when you're actually saying it, right? That's the key to it.
Andy, you know what I love about the examples about the softball practice, and just what you're illustrating here. I want to highlight what I'm noticing, and it's awesome, is the length of time that it took you. It took you 18 months to really get good at batting. That whole process took an amount of time that's longer than most of us. I was surprised to hear 18 months. So, and you're rigorous. And what also I noticed too, like what I heard in that story, which I think is important to highlight also, is that while you were learning a new way to handle the pitches, were messier. It was, you almost regressed, right, with your outcome.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely regressed, yes.
I think that's important for us to know, because I think for me there'd be a point where I'd give up and go, oh my God, I'm worse.
Right.
And it's important for us to all remember that if we're in the process of learning something new, it's going to mean that we're a beginner.
Yeah.
And in a way you were a beginner. And I just wanted to draw that out, because that is a really great lesson.
Thank you for that, Laura. I appreciate it. Yeah. I will say that the people we work with don't take 18 months to come up with new elevator pitches. It's not, it's not that involved. But I appreciate the insight that, yes, I mean, for a while you are uncomfortable. I said, it took me about 2 months to get over my what's new habit, and you're absolutely right. It's just plugging away at it, right? And it's a question of how much business growth you're looking for, and how successful you want to be. That's really, but what we're talking about here, Laura, and thank you for pointing this out, is these are the skills you can use to get better at that, right? With this is the path. This is the path that we offer to get better at that.
And like you said, it's more than just a one-time practice. You illustrated also that it's a repetitious thing. You're always practicing, always honing in on something. There's always something to improve and work on.
Yep. And you know what, Laura? That's actually why I offer these trusted advisor webinars, right? Because there's always refresher, and what we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But there are these monthly webinars that we offer that give you 3 tips. Every month you get 3 tips on business networking and elevator pitches and becoming a trusted advisor to kind of keep people in that business networking mode, right? Because we're out there doing our work. It's good to sometimes pull back and get a refresher on what the basic skills are. Kind of go back to basics and remember the skills. And so that's really that observation is where a lot of this comes from as well. A lot of these programs come from. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
So I wanted to quickly give the other. So I recommend practicing with a digital voice recorder. I noticed there were a bunch of people that do practice in front of a mirror, and I actually discourage people from practicing in front of a mirror, because if you're watching yourself while you're talking, that's actually not the way you're going to be doing it in the networking event. Right? In the networking event, you'll be watching someone else, and so I really encourage people to practice in the kind of situation that they're going to be in. So really, the practicing in front of a mirror. It's hard to evaluate yourself when you're in the middle of doing the thing. You can't really do both at the same time. So if you've been practicing in front of a mirror, I really encourage you to get one of those flip cameras or have a digital video recorder. Take a video of yourself and watch it. You'll be much more able to critique things. And of course, if you'd like some help with this, you can contact Lora or myself. You know, we have a bunch of programs that can help you with these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura, I know you have kind of a deep knowledge. You know, your insights. I know you have a deep knowledge about practice as well. You know, what tip do you want to give us about practice?
Sure. Well, I love to practice, and what I recommend is it's a fundamental practice that I offer all my clients, and it's called centering or practicing being fully present.
Okay.
But what does this have to do with business conversations? I'm sure you're thinking.
Sure.
Okay. Well, to me, what it has to do with business conversations is everything. Because it's like related to the softball story that you were giving. There's a certain way that you were present to how you're hitting the ball as you practice. And so when we're present and in the moment, it's kind of like pressing a reset button, because it brings us right into that exact moment, and it gives us an opportunity to connect with ourselves and with the people around us. Like, for example, when I dropped that chair, which is a great example to keep bringing up, but I was taken out of the moment the chair fell.
Okay.
Because I started to worry.
Well, I think other people were as well, right? Because the chair falls, and so they were thinking, what's she going to do? How's she going to handle this?
Yeah, I do worry for others, too. It's like, oh, my God, and when we worry, we're not in the present. We're actually in the future, or we're somewhere else. So centering it's an opportunity. That's what I did in the moment. I grounded myself, but I did a quick centering practice, which it takes just a few seconds, and it brought me right there and then, and I was able to do what I needed to do in the moment.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about the centering practice, but you mentioned both grounding and centering. Can you give us kind of an overview of how they're different? Like, what's the difference between those two?
Sure. Well, I can first say why they're similar.
Okay.
They're similar in that the outcome for both of the practices, for grounding and centering, is that they both bring you to the present moment. They're just different. There are different ways to get there. So I feel like the grounding is almost an aspect of centering, like centering, but it's a way to get us present in the moment, and they're different in that they're just different approaches.
And it sounds like centering is a more general approach, and grounding is a particular way of centering yourself. So there are a bunch of different ways, kind of like improv. There are a bunch of different ways you can do this, and you can kind of pick your approach based on kind of your knowledge of yourself.
Exactly. Whatever works. So I'm offering you two different things. You get to choose what works best for you, and you can create whatever you want out of it.
Great.
So this will take just a few minutes, and I invite you too, Andy, to jump along. But I invite everyone to, so this is going to be experiential right here for a moment, just warning you all. And if you're in an office, don't worry. People won't notice you doing anything. You're not looking weird when you do this. Okay. Because all we're going to do is I invite us all to sit and have our feet on the floor, on the ground, so that we are grounding ourselves by having our feet connected to the ground. But the thing about centering is, the whole point is it's also another way to balance ourselves. So centering is balancing, is being present. It's all the same. If we put our hands on our belly button, the belly area is our center point of our body. That's our center. That's our balance point. And I invite us to I'm going to take 3 deep breaths right now, nice and slow and quietly to yourself. But I invite you to breathe. Just notice your breath right now. And usually our breath is pretty high in our chest, but to bring it down to our belly. And so I invite you to take 3 nice inhalations and exhalations, and have your exhalations a little longer than your inhalations. So this is some conscious breathing right now. And as you inhale and exhale, I want you to also notice as you do that the sensation of gravity pulling you into your chair, like feeling yourself letting go and relaxing. Take a few more deep breaths, nice and slow. And you may find that you're feeling a little resistant to it, but try it anyway. When we deepen our breath, there's a lot of studies done on this, tied to breathing and meditation, like all that. But the breathing, when we breathe from our belly versus our upper chest, we're increasing the volume of our breath, which we're allowing our bodies to settle down and relax. And it helps to clear our minds. Not to mention, it lowers our blood pressure. And a few of you, 25% of you, indicated that you have to convince yourself to walk into the door to network. Well, breathing to your belly is a quick and easy way to calm your nerves.
Well, can you? So this is great.
Yeah.
I love that sensation of kind of just being present and calm. Can
And
you give us an
slowing
example?
ourselves down. Yep.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of a client or someone you worked with and how they use this to be successful?
Absolutely. I'll bring a great example to this. In a moment after this example, I'm going to walk through how we balance ourselves. But I was teaching a class, and I gave the students a homework assignment where they were to practice centering 3 times a day for the week, and then we'd report back the following week to class. This woman said that she was, and one of the places I recommend or suggest to practice centering and checking in with yourself is driving, because it's quiet. We're in our car, and it's just quiet, you know. And that's a place where I check in with myself, so I offer that. So this woman was driving along, and she remembered, oh, I've got to practice centering. So she noticed right away, she was surprised to discover that when she checked in, before she centered, she said, oh my goodness, like I'm so tense, my jaw is so tight, my eyes are tight, I'm squinting. Hey, I feel angry. And she didn't notice that she was angry a moment ago.
Interesting.
And so then when she noticed that, she said, okay, so now I'm going to center. So part of the centering we're going to do in a moment is she rolls back her shoulders, breathes down to her belly, felt her feet touching the pedals, and as soon as she did that, and it was instantaneous, she said immediately she felt completely different. She could not feel angry anymore in that position. Her posture, her body posture couldn't be angry. It just didn't allow for anger energy anymore. It dissipated.
That's great. Well,
Isn't that amazing?
Should probably teach that to everyone because there's so much road rage going on, right?
That could be another elevator pitch right there.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, so we're running a little bit short on time, Laura. So if people are interested in kind of more about centering, I'd like to encourage them to get in touch with Laura offline, right? We'll have, there's, Laura's got a great knowledge about this, and it's really wonderful. I wanted to share, Laura, that I actually had a similar thing in a car. With the window cleaning business, part of what I had to do most days was drive from Arlington to Brookline, and I kind of had the sense it should be able to happen in half an hour. And so the whole way there, I was the same way. I was angry. Why are we in the light? It stuck me on another light. There's all these cars, and I finally realized that it takes 40 minutes to drive from Arlington to Brookline. No matter how many cars are in front of you, no matter how many lights you get stuck at, it seems like it's always going to be longer. But it's about a 40-minute drive. And once I started giving myself 40 minutes to get over there, I found that I could really relax. If there wasn't, part of the job is to drive across town, and that it was that was good. So that's an excellent example. Thank you for sharing. So how would you recommend? So if people want to practice kind of on a daily basis, what do you recommend? Are you recommending doing that in the car? Is that the?
I do. Finding it's just remembering. I think the big piece is remembering to practice.
Okay.
That's the part that I'm like. So I put sticky notes sometimes, sticky notes on my computer screen. It's just, it could take just a minute or 30 seconds, and it's just a matter of breathing your belly, feeling your feet in the ground, whatever works for you to have you be in the present moment, and notice your surroundings. Driving in your car, this is what I also do. When I'm about to enter a networking event, I do get nervous. I practice in the car like you recommended, but I also, when I arrive, when I park the car, I don't get out of the car right away. That's where I check in with myself and I breathe and center. So that I take a couple minutes. I may even go into the bathroom and do that.
Yep.
And one more tip is, while you're even networking, you could do it in between your conversations with people. So it's a great way to kind of clear yourself and your mind and relax into the next conversation. So, okay, I shook your hand. Nice to meet you. We'll talk later. You can even put your hand on your belly and go, okay, I'm going to breathe to my belly and approach the next person. Look whose eyes do I make connection with? Whose eyes do I catch? But the key thing is I would recommend practicing as much as you can before you even go to the networking event, so that it becomes a new habit, like Andy, you said, when you practice the what's new conversation. It took you like 2 months to just get that to be an automatic thing. And also softball, you practice before the games.
Sure. Yep.
So it's all
Great, no,
tied.
and you're right. That's a good thing to tie together. What we're talking about here are ways of practicing before you actually go into the event, right? That
Yeah.
we're giving you specific skills you can use to practice. And you know what? We encourage you to email us. You know, as you use this, as you go to networking events coming up, and as you practice centering, as you're driving to and from work, we encourage you to kind of email us with what's going on. You know, the things that it helps you with. Like we're always willing to hear success stories.
Yeah, which is great. Oh, and I just want to say one more thing, Andy, is in the networking event itself is an opportunity to practice as well. So it's not like you have to have it perfect.
Yep.
It's just another opportunity to practice.
That is a really good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. So once again, we're going to go quiet for about 30 seconds. We want everyone to think about kind of practicing. Because the centering thing, you know, want to take some time to get centered. Just think about practicing. Think how you can use that in the networking that you're doing. Again, feel free to send comments through our chat box if you want. We've got about 3 minutes left, and we're going to get you out of here on time. But I just want to take a couple of minutes to, you know, just take a couple of seconds to kind of think about what we've been talking about and how you're going to apply that. So go ahead and do that now. Great. And so we got a comment earlier from Jim who said, you know, in an improvisational situation like networking, grounding helps me to stay focused. I stop focusing on outside influences, and that's great, Jim. Thank you for sharing that with us. That sounds like a lot. It sounds like you're kind of good with this, and that's a great example of kind of using that to stay focused on what it is that you're working on. So as we wrap up here, I want to talk about two things. The first is the elevator pitch is really the first. We've been talking today a lot about the elevator pitch, and you know, Laura and I work with a lot of people on putting elevator pitches together, both the verbal and nonverbal side. And I want to kind of put this in a larger context. The elevator pitch is actually the first and most important skill of a trusted advisor. The 5 skills, I'll go over them quickly. If you want more information, feel free again to go to trustedadvisorwebinars.com, and there's a full description out there. But the skills are the elevator pitch, one-on-ones, follow-up, professional referrals, and opportunity spotting. And again, today what we've been really talking about is the elevator pitch, but there are some resources out at trustedadvisorworkshops.com that can give you a little bit more about the kinds of skills there are. And the interesting thing about being a trusted advisor is that the real job is to find other trusted advisors. That you're using these skills to build a group of people that you feel comfortable giving referrals to. And if you're interested in more about this, I really recommend the Trusted Advisor Workshops. It's a monthly workshop that talks you through these things, gives you ideas every month for how to connect with people, how to trust other people, you know, how to kind of build that business network for yourself. And so
Andy, just quickly, would you say a trusted advisor is someone like a group of people who you refer people, like clients to, and they refer clients to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
yep.
great.
And,
that's very interesting.
Yep, and to be a trusted advisor, you need to know other trusted advisors, right? A lot of people think they can sit there and be a trusted advisor, but you actually need to know other trusted advisors because people will come to you with things outside your expertise, and you want to be able to give them to people that can really help them. And so that's really the key piece when I think about being a trusted advisor, that you do want to be the go-to person. In order to be the go-to person, you need to know other go-to people, right? That's kind of the approach.
Yeah, like you're resourceful. You're a good resource.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And so if this is what you think about as a business conversation, Laura could probably have a field day with this, with the body language and all this stuff. It looks a little bit uncomfortable, right? So if this is kind of how you're feeling with your elevator pitch work, Laura and I are offering a special introductory program. You actually get both of us for an hour. We do an hour coaching with you. We're offering a great deal on it. So if you're interested in more information, you can contact either of us. You'll get the contact information in a minute. But again, our goal is to make things relaxed. You know, help you go in to know exactly the kind of conversation that you're going to have. To put yourself in the right state so you have confidence so that you can go at this the right way and not be distracted and really focus on growing your business. And that is our true hope for you, that you become you're highly successful growing and building your business. So for more information, you can contact us. Laura's at LyonsLeadershipCoaching.com. Some more resources for people are TrustedAdvisorWebinars.com and the ElevatorPitchWorkshops.com give you an overview of the elements of the elevator pitch, the elements of being a trusted advisor. So it's a great place to go for these resources. Did you have any closing comments for everyone, Laura?
I don't at the moment, but I thank everyone for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Great, yes. Thank you, everyone. Hope you got something out of it. A survey will come up when we're done, so please go ahead and let us know that these webinars are obviously for you and to help you. So please give us feedback when you log out of the webinar. We'll will get a survey, and we really appreciate you filling out that survey for us. And we thank everyone for being on the webinar. Happy networking. Go get some business, and please share with us all your successes. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.